Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It's another day in paradise. Okay, so today is another Friday, and we're bringing you guys another edition of Decency NCLEX Academy Friday seminars. And today we are talking immigration. And it's not coming to you from any other person than the vendor of good news himself. So we are here trying to bring to you some of the recent events that has happened, especially in the US immigrations, and all that you need to know about what's going on. And we have a very, very experienced person in our midst. He has been an immigration attorney for a very long time with a lot of success. In fact, since I met him, I've never seen any filing that he did that he did not go through with it. He has had 100% filing success with me and with all the companies that I know that he worked with. He is a very, very humble person. He is very busy, but he always finds time to, come talk to us. And that's one interesting thing I like about him. Most of the time that we, get him on this show, if we're meant to pay him, trust me, we can pay him. We can't pay him enough for his time, because I know how much that immigration attorneys have actually, charged in the past to be in programs like this. So I really appreciate that, the fact that he's always available to talk to us. And I also like the fact that he's always willing to help out in situations. I know a lot of people from this group has gained from him, having a one-on-one talk with him and then having all their problems resolved. So with that being said, I don't want to, so much, seem like I'm praising him so much, but this is exactly who he is, and it's coming from the bottom of my heart. So without saying so much today, I want to welcome to our presence our Mr. Douglas. Mr. Douglas Kofi, are you there? Can you hear me? I've asked you to unmute. Yes.
Yes,
How
I
are you
can.
doing today, sir?
Thank you. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having me. How's it
Yes,
going?
we are so blessed to have you. I was just saying before you got on this that if we are meant to pay you, bro, we can pay you. You know that. Is your worth is above our paycheck. So but we really appreciate the fact that you're willing and always available to us when we call. We don't take that for granted, and we know you are a very busy person, but we just want to say thank you for having time for us. And then we have so many people on the call today. I think for the most part, we've seen people from Nigeria. I know I've seen a Ghanaian, but I guess he didn't put his comment on the comment section. But we have people from Saudi Arabia as well. So we are just here to talk immigration. There's been a lot of tension, especially now that Mr. Trump is the president on Trump 2.0. So I know a lot of people are anxious. Most of my candidates are anxious at the moment. A lot of people are spreading false rumors. There's a lot of misconceptions going on around now, about different visa types like the EB3, the H1B, the student visas. Everywhere is like the system is in shock. Nobody knows what is really true and what is not. So I know we're just gonna like take. I don't know. I don't want to have you, pour everything on your table and have you just, juggle all of them. So we're just gonna take it one after the other. And first of all, what we want to hear from you is if there is any, from all the executive orders that has been passed, are there any order that affects immigration that is, relevant to people in this call, on this call, please?
No, I don't. I think with immigration, there are certain things that the president can do, and there are certain things that he cannot do. And so, there are a lot of things that he can. The Department of Homeland Security is under the executive branch of government, and the president is basically the chief executive of that branch. And so, given that the Department of Homeland Security, USCIS, Border Patrol, all of those fall under the president's executive branch, he can pass executive orders, or he can issue executive orders telling those agencies how to act and what their priorities should be. So he can do that. He can tell them how to do their job, basically, but he cannot necessarily change the law, if that makes sense. there are certain things that only Congress can. It would need a congressional act, which at this point in time it's not going to be difficult for him to get, because, as you know, the Republicans control the Senate and the House, and so if he wants to change the law, I mean, he has the numbers and he can do some of those things. Employment-based visas have been in existence for a long time, and if you want to see whether or not Trump's actions can affect some of these employment-based visas, you have to understand why they exist in the first place. So all employment-based visas, virtually all employment-based visas, the Department of Labor puts regulations in place to make sure that the people that are coming in to work in the U.S. is not going to affect American workers, right? So they're, for the H-1B, you have to do the labor condition application, the LCA. For the EB3, outside of nurses, you have to do the perm process. So those processes are meant to protect American workers. And so the reason why, employers are able to bring people from overseas, because there's a shortage of workers in this country. Most of the people on this call are nurses, and the Department of Labor has specifically recognized that there's a shortage of nurses, which is why they have the perm process. They have nurses and physical therapists excluded from the perm process. So an employer doesn't have to prove to the government that they couldn't find a nurse to be able to bring one from overseas, right? So nothing that I have seen so far suggests that there's going to be an executive order restricting bringing nurses to the U.S. If anything, I think that some of the things that are happening would actually benefit and help employment-based applications.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much, Mr. Douglas. I know that clears the way, because I know a lot of people, people are really scared. In fact, I've had a lot of my candidates, go through very stressful process, trying to immigrate to Australia as a way to kind of drop the U.S. Immigration pathway, because they all believe that the U.S. is about to shut down its borders and close down all immigration pathways because of this whole thing that is going on. So my next question is about the bulletin. So do you know, like, where are we standing at the bulletin right now? Are we current yet? I know the answer, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, nobody that we have filed for in the last 2 years has their priority dates current. We have some applicants that we filed outside of those priority dates whose visa bulletin, whose priority dates are current, but everybody that we filed for in the last 2 years don't have dates that are current. The visa bulletin has moved forward. I mean, if you tracked it since April of from when it started retrogressing, when you track it, you could see that it's moving forward slowly, very, very slowly, but it's moving forward nonetheless. And so it's going to get to a point where it becomes current. And if you look at, Trump has been in office before, right? This is not sort of a first time thing. And so if you want to sort of see what he's going to do or what his priorities are, just look at Trump 1.0, right? This is basically Trump 2.0.
Right.
And during his tenure, I mean, the visa bulletin was current throughout the entire 4 years that he was president. The U.S. also had record-breaking H-1B admissions during his tenure as president the first time. So, and he also has people around him that need H-1B. I think I read somewhere that there's a significant number of Tesla employees, SpaceX employees that are on H-1B, Indians that are on H-1B visas. A lot of the tech workers rely on H-1B visas and EB3s and EB1s, other types of employment-based visas. So, I mean, that tells you that if he does away with all employment-based immigration, people that are closest to him are going to suffer. And he himself is a businessman. I mean, Trump has also employed, his businesses has employed people on EB3s and H-1B visas in the past, and they still do, And so I don't see any action so far that is going to inhibit, employment-based visas. Now, if you have some sort of a criminal history, or you've been denied a visa before due to fraud or misrepresentation, they're going to be harder on those candidates. His mandate is to prevent criminals or people, shady people from coming to the U.S. And so, if you have one of those things on your record, I mean, I would be concerned. But outside of that, I don't see it.
Okay, Sounds good. Thank you so much for answering that question. Then that brings me to the next point in the question is the issue of IDs that are not coming out. Like, so a lot of agencies are now, adopting. If you remember, there was a time we were on this call last year, and you brought up an idea that people in countries that don't have IDs can actually go to another country and try to get IDs in those countries. So a lot of agencies are doing it now. They are trying. So far, your current, they are able to, get you to another country and get you an ID. And so I just want you to explain how that process works again. Do you have to do it yourself, or you have to do it with an attorney? So, what's the process like?
Well, I mean, it's one of those questions like asking somebody, should you change your own oil or should you go get a mechanic to change it for you? I mean, obviously you can do it yourself. All of these things that we're doing, you could do yourself. But whether or not you should is a different issue depending on your specific qualifications. Uh, last year when we spoke, the Department of State at that time had said that, they understand that some of these consulates are backlogged with really, really long interview dates. And so if you're able to, you should move your case from one embassy to the other to facilitate getting an earlier date. And this is only for people whose priority dates are current. So if your priority date is not current, you're not going to be able to do that because, you're just not going to be able to. One of the things that you can do is that you have to, the way that you do it is that you email the receiving embassy. So the embassy that you want your case transferred to, you email them and then ask them to transfer your case from one embassy to the other. And if they have the bandwidth and you satisfy their requirements of being in that country legally, they may transfer the case for you. But again, it depends on where your case is. So if your case is already at the NVC, then you reach out to the NVC and request the transfer. If your case is at the consulate, then you'd have to reach out to the receiving embassy to request that transfer.
Okay, so I know. Like, when do you know? Like, at what point do you know or determine that your case is with the NVC and the consulate? I know.
Yeah, for immigrant visas like EB3, like EB3, your case remains with the NVC until they schedule you for an interview. Once they schedule you for an interview, then it's at the embassy. The NVC transfers your case to the embassy. But prior to getting an interview, your civil document, your DS-260, all of that goes through the NVC. So if your priority is not current and you haven't been scheduled for an interview, there's a good chance that your case is at the NVC. If you've been scheduled for an interview, then your case is at the embassy.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So with all this thing that is, with all what you said today, do you advise some of our people who are yet to write NCLEX and pursue an American dream to go for it, or look for greener pastures elsewhere?
Well, I just one of the things that I have struggled with over and I'm trying to be very candid, and this is specifically for our Nigerian candidates, is that there seems to be an urgency to exit the country, which I understand, but you have to understand that there's on the immigration spectrum, there are certain things that the immigration lawyer can control, and there are certain things that they cannot control. You understand?
Mhm.
And people sometimes fail to understand that immigration lawyers are not magicians. I couldn't just wave a wand and have your DS-260 completed and have your civil documents
I wish you
accepted.
can do that.
Right, right. So immigration is a long. You have to understand that it's a journey and it takes a very long time to do. If you're doing it legally, it takes a long time, but at the end of the day, it's going to be done properly, right? So if you're looking for a quick way to come to America, especially now that the visa bulletin is retrogressed, if you're looking for a quick way to come to America, NCLEX isn't it. I mean, that's just the truth. If you want to come up with a 5-year game plan, which that's what I tell people now. Back in the day, it used to be 8 months. You can from when you start, from when they meet you prepping for the NCLEX to when they arrive in America is 8 months. Now it's more like 5 years.
Right.
So if you, if you're willing to invest 5 year period, knowing that you're going to get there and you're going to get there correctly, the right way with no legal implications and no problems, then yeah, you should do it. If you feel like you cannot wait 5 years, then you should pursue other options.
Right. Talking about other options, and I know, Trump administration made mention about like people coming here to study, and it's what do you think that would look like, the student route of coming to the US, from that entry to getting a green card? What does it look like?
Well, the Trump administration has not said that they're going to expand student visas. What he said, and it's not a policy yet, but Trump says a lot of things, some of them
Right.
never come to pass. But what he said was that he thinks that if you come to America and you study here, there should be a way for you to stay here. So he wants to retain the talent of people who come here and they go to school here and they get degrees. There should be a way for you to stay here. And President Biden said the same thing before he left office. In fact, I think in August, he tried passing this law about people who graduated from American universities and being able to get a work permit. And so I think that's consistent between the Trump administration and the Biden administration. And whether or not that actually becomes a policy or something that gets approved or passed into law, that remains to be seen. But that is something that he has said.
Right. Right. So, so currently, for somebody that comes here for like study, at the end of the study, if you went through the STEM route, like the science, technology, engineering, mathematics route, are you qualified to go for like NIW kind of thing? And does NIW grant someone a green card, or does it just give you a work permit? What kind of visa, when you apply for NIW, do you come out with?
Yeah, that's a good question. The NIW gives you a green card. It's an immigrant visa category. So visa categories are either immigrant or non-immigrant. Non-immigrant visas are B1, B2, J1 visas. All of those. There's no green card at the end of it. Whereas immigrant visas, gives you a green card. EB3, EB1A, EB2, EB5. Those types. You get a green card out of it. So like I said, part of immigration is about strategy. And I think that if we're able to shift our mindset from, immigration lawyers being problem solvers to actually planners, I think that would benefit people greatly. Because for example, like if you want to come to school in America, it's important for you to decide, one, whether or not you're going to be able to afford the tuition, for one. And if you can afford the tuition, what is your end goal? Even though the student visa says that, you have to prove to the government that you want to go back, we both know that most people who come on student visas dream to remain in the United States and work.
Right.
And that's just the reality. And so if that's your reality, you have to figure out what is the legal way to do it. I think most people just go get a student visa and think that, I'll get a student visa, I'll come to America, and then I just won't go to school, I'll find a job to do. They don't think about what comes next. Over the last 3 or so weeks, since Trump came into office, I have consistently received phone calls from people that have been in the country for 20, 30 years who came here on student visas and don't have any status. And there's lots of people like that here, but those are people that just get whatever visa they get, without thinking about what comes next or how that leads to permanent residency. So to address your question, if you wanted to come here on a student visa and you want to stay, one of the ways that you could stay is through the EB2 NIW. The EB2 NIW is a self-petition. So what that means is that you don't need, an employer to sponsor you. You can sponsor yourself. And you can do it from Nigeria. You don't necessarily have to be in the US to do it. The NIW stands for National Interest Waiver. What that means is that your future plans, your endeavor, the job that you want to do in the future, it has to benefit the United States. It has to be in the national interest. And so people in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, tend to have higher success rates with EB2 NIWs because there's a huge need for STEM degrees in the US. the requirement is that you have to have an advanced degree. Advanced degree is defined as any degree above a bachelor's degree. So that means a master's degree, right? So if you have a master's degree in a STEM related field, then you can get an EB2 NIW. So in terms of planning, if you came here for your undergrad, then you do your undergrad, you do your OPT, you go do your master's, you get a STEM OPT, and then while you're between when you graduate from your master's and when you get your STEM OPT, we can put in the EB2 NIW program visa for you. It typically takes about 2 years. I mean, that's how far back it's retrogress now. So if we time it properly, by the time your STEM OPT runs out, your priority dates would have been current, and then you can apply for adjustment of status on the EB2 NIW if your petition is done properly. So if it's done properly and it's timed properly, by the time you graduate with your master's degree, you would have had a green card through the EB2 NIW program.
Wow. So guys, let me give Mr. Douglas a little break now. You see, it's a lot of information right here. It's so much. Some of the things, some of the good thing about this is that it's being recorded. If you were taking notes, if this meeting was not recorded, I know that most of you will not catch up with the amount of information that's being given out here. It's a lot, and that's why you need an expert. You need somebody who has seen it all kinds of visa. We've traversed through different types of visas right here. We've talked about EB3, we talked about student visas, we've talked about NIW, we talked about H1B. Oh, we're going to talk about H1B and every other kind of visas that that can bring people legally here into the United States. So but one thing that I know for sure is that sometimes you just need an expert like Mr. Douglas, behind you or beside you as you make these decisions, because a lot of people have made, immigration blunders, that they've committed something that had it been they knew, they wouldn't have done it. If they ask questions, they won't do it. There are people that are still back home in Nigeria and in other African countries. And when I ask them, why are you still, you wrote your NCLEX in 2019, why are you still in the country? And they begin to tell me their ordeal with the embassy, questions they were asked and how they responded to those questions, and, actions that they wanted to take that were deemed somehow illegal, and their process was placed on administrative processing. It's a lot of people going into that now. And the embassies are becoming more and more aware of such cases. So even when you are not, you are tagged one until you're not, until you're proven that you're not. You understand? Until you prove to them that you're not. So please, before you make mistakes, before you make any very active or very delicate step, please ask questions so that you don't make a mistake. Okay, so today we'll be giving people opportunity to ask Mr. Douglas questions. I will be the only one asking him questions. I wanted to spend 30 minutes of the meeting asking him questions myself. Some of those questions is some things that I've already talked through with him before. He has already helped a lot of people in those situations before, but I don't know what your specific situation is. So if you want to bring that up today, I just want you to use the microphone, use the emojis and raise up your hand. I will give you the opportunity to ask him question yourself in your own words, according to your own situation, and then we'll find out what he would say about that. But before, as we are waiting for you to gather your thoughts and put yourself together about your questions and how you're going to ask it, I'm going to ask him one more question about the EB3, position of the not EB3, the H1B. I know that the H1B for this year, I don't know, are we expecting the H1B lottery visas this year? Are they going to be opened? And if they are, when are we expecting to start filing for another H1B?
Well, the unfortunate thing about H1B is that personally, I am done with H1Bs. I'm not doing any more H1Bs. But the H1B lottery opens up on March 7th. It's going to run for, I think, from the 7th to the 27th, I believe. So it opens on noon on March 7th and then runs all the way to the 27th. And the biggest change is the filing fee, obviously, the entry fee. We paid $10 last year. This year, I think, is at around $200 or something like that. So if you're putting 100 people in last year, you're spending about $1,000, right? It's $1,000 gamble.
Right.
Now, if you're 200 people and you're doing $200 and you're doing 100 people, That's significantly more than what it used to be. And the reason why that is to discourage people from putting in entries of people that are not qualified, you know. So those are the biggest changes. But personally, I'm not doing any any H1Bs this year.
Okay. Yeah, I have someone here, Ifoma. Ifoma, I've asked you to unmute. Can you unmute and ask your question? And I have Benedict as well. So Ifoma, I asked you to unmute while you're, okay, go ahead.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. How are you?
Fine, thank you. This is my second time of joining this program.
Oh, you're welcome, second timer.
Yes. So my question is, if I understand what he's saying, I am a BSc holder. I have BSc in nursing, but I don't have any specialty. Considering the long wait, like he said, you have to be patient and give or take 5 years. So is it advisable that someone like me can come through masters in nursing, and from there I can transition to work visa? That after completing my master's, writing NCLEX, and probably I get a job that sponsors me to stay back. Like, is it doable? Is it possible?
Yeah, if I'm, it's a good question. There's an organization that we know of called the Bridgeway firm that does exactly what you're talking about. So yes, you could, if you've already written your NCLEX and you've passed, then technically you have an American license, a nurse and an RN license, because you have to get, the license before you get your ATT to go test. So by the time you pass the NCLEX, your license is more or less secured. So if you came here for your master's program, there are some programs that offer day one OPT. What that means is that you could start work day one CPT, I'm sorry. So what that means is that you can start working the first day you start classes. And so if you start working as a nurse, nurses make between $40 to $50 an hour. That's a lot of money that you can make, while you still go to school. And then when your prior day becomes current, then you can apply. So yes, that's a strategy that you could use. The thing that you have to be careful about, though, is that between your F1 visa or your service record being terminated and when your priority becomes current, you have to make sure that you stay in status the whole time. Because if you're out of status for more than 180 days, it's going to jeopardize your EB3 petition.
All right. But okay, but I don't have NCLEX. I'm not written NCLEX, but I understand. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ifoma. And next person is Benedict. Benedict, I've asked you to unmute. You can ask your question.
Okay, good evening. Good evening, sir. My name is Benedict NCLEX. I wrote my NCLEX last year, and I signed a contract with a hospital in Nebraska. We're using Worldwide Health Staffing, but they are yet to file for me. They are yet to file my I-140 pending the prevailing wage determination. And I've already signed the contract and I've signed the ETA document with them, but they are yet to file for me. So I recently contacted another agent to file for me, to file my I-140, and they are about to file it. I'm wondering if I sign this contract and terminate the contract with the previous hospital, is it going to affect my visa processing later in the future? If I terminate the contracts and sign with this hospital that has a current PWD, if it's going to affect me later in future?
Well, your private contract with the various health facilities has nothing to do with your visa application. So the issue that you should be concerned about is whether or not the previous company is going to be willing to issue you a letter of release, because then you have a contract issue other than a visa issue. But whether or not you terminate your contract properly and you get a new one, immigration doesn't really care, as long as you have an approved I-140 and you have a job offer and everything else is good.
Okay, though they haven't spent anything on me, so they are willing to, if I want to terminate the contract, I can terminate it. Okay. I just need it on.
Yeah, but again, that's a private matter outside of immigration, right? It doesn't have anything to do with your immigration status.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I hope that answered your question, Mr. Benedict. Thank you. And we have another hand raised, Aderonke. Aderonke, I've asked you to unmute. You can unmute and ask your question.
Good evening,
Yeah,
Douglas. Good evening, Decency. Yeah, I have two questions. Firstly, I've already tagged it in the chat, on the chat box, but maybe I should explain. One is actually to explain. And it's a case of my friend. She's actually current on EB3, but before she started the NCLEX journey, her mom, who is a citizen, filed for her. And then recently she got an approval for that filing. So the issue now is this is actually current on EB3. And at the same time, her mom is now dead. She was thinking of if the family is going to be faster, she go through the filing. I don't know. If she can she still go through the family route if it's faster, but her mom is dead? Is it possible? Is it possible for the case to continue? Because the person that filed for her, who is her mom and a citizen, is dead. That's the first question. The second question is about, sorry, I joined late, so I didn't hear so much about the migration of interview dates, kind of, of case to different embassies. So I just want to have, because I'm not current, but I thought we are current. Decency and Barrister Douglas have been talking about you can migrate or wasting for a long time. So I just want to ask, maybe if we have people that have done it, that can like encourage people maybe to go through that route. Thank you.
Well, the issue about the petitioner passing away prior to the approval of the application is one that happens sometimes. There's something called a humanitarian reinstatement. So if your petitioner passes away while the case is at the NVC or the embassy, the NVC is going to return the application back to USCIS for either recertification or denial. Because once your petitioner passes away, the application is dead, basically. USCIS you could apply for humanitarian reinstatement, and USCIS could reinstate the application despite the fact that the petitioner had passed away. But there's a lag between the NVC sending the case back to back to USCIS, and then USCIS recertifying it and sending it back to the NVC. So I don't know exactly how long that time may take, but that's a process. And USCIS could also decide not to approve your humanitarian reinstatement. There's no guarantee that it would be approved. So that timeline and that sort of uncertainty should play a part in making that determination whether or not you want to go the family route or the employment route. The good news is that you have options. You have a family-based petition, and then you have an employment-based petition. So if your friend's prior date is current, then the sure way or the easiest way is just to go with the employment-based if their prior date is current. However, if their prior date is not current, then exploring the family route might be a good idea.
Okay, I hope that answered your question, Aderonke. And then she asked a secondary question about the migration. You can go ahead and go back to this video. When we send you the link, you can watch it and see what we said about the migration at the beginning of the interview. Thank you so much, Aderonke. Now, for next time's sake, when you join this meeting, try to make sure that you put your name on your profile so that we can address you properly, so we don't call people the name of their devices. Okay, so I've asked you, iPhone, to unmute and ask your question. iPhone.
Okay, so please, good evening to us all. Please, my question is about my sister. She actually passed the NCLEX, that was last year, and up to date, the priority date is not in, but she's having the opportunity to move to the UK as a nurse. So if she moved to the UK and let's say the priority date is current and she needs to go to the US, would there be any problem with the immigration process? Please, thank you.
Hi, no, there shouldn't be any problem. In fact, we have candidates that are doing exactly that. They're in the UK and then they're processing the applications from the UK to the US. So no, there shouldn't be any problem with that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much, Mr. Douglas. I have some questions on the comment section. I'm just going to read a few of them. Fatima says, please, can I still apply for H-1B visa after I pass my NCLEX and OET waiting for visa screen?
You repeat the question again? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
She's just asking if she can apply for H-1B visa after she passes her NCLEX. So some of these H-1B visas, they have criteria, and I think that's something that we need to make known in this meeting. What are the requirements for H-1B application filing?
Well, to answer your question, yes, you could apply for H-1B. You know, if you're qualified as a nurse, you could apply for an H-1B. Now, you have to understand that the H-1B visa is for nurses that are specialty occupation nurses, not just a general nurse, right? A specialty occupation is an occupation defined by USCIS as one that requires a minimum of a bachelor's degree, right? So you have to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree to be able to to qualify for specialty occupation, and then you must have some experience and qualified personally to be able to take those specialty occupation. And in nursing, some of those specialty occupations could be labor and delivery, critical care nursing, emergency room nurses, geriatric, specialized outside of just general nursing. In the H-1B visa itself, there's either the cap subject or the cap exempt. The cap subject is, you basically have to go through the lottery process for that. If you're lucky enough to get an organization that qualifies for the cap exempt means no lottery. You can apply at any time. So, the organizations that can apply for the cap exempt, organizations that are nonprofit organizations, and organizations that are institutions of higher learning. So, for example, if you get a job at a university teaching hospital in the US, they may be able to apply for the H-1B cap exempt for you. So those are the two main differences we have between the two. But to answer your question, yes, you could, if you qualify, you could apply for the H-1B.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. We have someone else that has raised hand to ask question. Dauda, please, you can unmute yourself. Tell us where you're joining us from and ask your question.
Good evening. This is Dauda. I'm calling from Accra, Ghana.
Okay, go ahead with your question, Dauda.
Good evening, Mr. Douglas. This is one of your own, Dauda.
Yes, hi, Dauda. Yes, I remember you. How are you doing?
By His grace of you. Yes.
How
so
can I
my
help?
question is going to be based on speaking that you can come via your school route, where you can work alongside whilst you're doing your masters. So like us, we also have contract with other staffing agency already. Can we go through that route without having issues with breach of contract?
Did you hear that question?
Bits of it. It wasn't very clear. Yeah. I think you're asking about breach of contracts and whether or not you can go with a different agency without breaching your contract. Is that your question?
Yes, please, especially with Bridgeway via the school route.
Yeah, I don't know much about Bridgeway except that I know that they take people through the F1 route. I don't have any relationship with them. I've never talked to anybody there. And so I don't know anything about their program besides that they bring international students through the nursing route. But as far as Westways is concerned and the contract that you've signed with Westways, Westways has to give you has to bring you to the US and give you the ability to work here for you to be able to work for them. So if you come to the US with Bridgeway, it would be a good idea to reach out to Westways, tell them that you're in the US with Bridgeway, because that would also change your immigration process. We're not going to be doing the NVC process anymore. We're going to be doing adjustment of status if you happen to come to the US, right? And so if that happens for you, if you get that opportunity, I would say take it. And then when you get here, just send Westways an email, notify them, and then they would figure out a way to make it work for the both of you.
Okay, sounds good. I hope that answered your question. And then I have some more questions on the comment section. He said, Amma is asking, please, while waiting for my priority date to be current, can my dependent husband process or file for US student visa? And then she accompanies to come. So does that change the dynamics of the visa application?
Well, so the technical answer is yes. I mean, you could apply for, your husband can file for an F1 and then include you as a dependent on the F1. You have to understand that the F1 is a non-immigrant visa. And the intent of the non-immigrant visa, you have to have a non-immigrant intent, which means you have to promise them that you're going to go back home. On the other hand, you have an I-140 that has been filed for you, which is an immigrant visa. And so, you know, and you have to, you know, on the DS-160, I think there's a question on there that says, has anybody ever filed an immigrant visa on your behalf before? And you have to answer truthfully. So then you're telling them that you have an immigrant visa pending for you, already approved for you. And on the other end, you're looking for an F1 visa. I've seen some people get the F1 visas approved despite that fact. I've also seen people whose F1 visas have been denied because they have a pending, you know, immigrant visa. So those are conflicting intents, right? On the one hand, you're telling them I plan on going back. On the other hand, you have an application that says that I want to become a permanent resident in the US. So that could be a problem in terms of the person adjudicating your visa. But can you do both at the same time? Yes. Is it legal? It's absolutely legal.
Okay. Sounds good. I have Chidinma on the call. Chidinma has raised hand. I've asked you to unmute. Chidinma, tell us where you're joining us from and ask your question. Sorry, unmute again.
Hello, my name is Chidinma. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm speaking from the UK. I wrote my NCLEX last year, but I'm really confused at what the right step to take at this point, because everything is still a bit confusing to me. Because when I've got a fiance in the US and he's a citizen there, but I really don't know how to go about it. I'm just seeking advice. Is it for me to apply just as the normal procedure, or I don't know, what should I do? Thank you.
Yeah, Chidinma, I think that if your fiance petitions for you, you know, on a K1 visa or fiance visa, that would be your fastest way to America. You've passed the NCLEX, you don't have an I-140 filed for you. So if you wanted to go the employment-based route, first of all, you have to find an organization that can file an I-140 for you. And most organizations now are not even taking new people, even people that have passed the NCLEX, because of the priority dates. So you may have some trouble finding an organization to file for you. If you're lucky enough to find one, the I-140s are taking between 8 months to a year. I mean, we have I-140s that are over a year now. We still haven't received any approval on there. And then you have to wait for a priority to become current, another 2 to 3 years. And then the embassy has to schedule an interview. So if you go that route, you're looking at it, you know, like I said, about a 5-year time period. Whereas if your fiance petitions for you, you can be in the US within 18 months. So, you know, that's a personal decision, right? Do you want your fiance to petition for you, or do you want to go through the employment route?
All right. Chidinma, I hope you're able to narrow down what you really want in this situation. All right, so I'm going to read out more questions. Bruce is asking, it says, good day, sir. So after passing my NCLEX and I have an agency that is ready to give a job offer, would that still take up to 5 years? Secondly, will I be able to go with my daughter?
Yes, I mean, the 5-year period that I mentioned, just think about it this way. So when you apply for even if you get the job offer, let's say we apply for the I-140 today, it's taken on average about a year for the I-140 to be approved, maybe longer. So that's 1 year gone, right? Then you have to wait for your priority date to become current, which right now is taking about 2 years. So that's 3 years total. Then you have to wait for the embassy to give you a date to attend the interview. In Nigeria, there are people, and in Ghana, there are people who've been waiting for over 2 years to get their interview dates. So you see how quickly that 5-year time period can come and go. And there's nothing anybody can do within that time frame to speed it up. You cannot, you know, you cannot force the priority date to go as fast as you want it to. And you certainly cannot force the embassy to give you an earlier date unless you have some sort of an emergency, which, you know, your employer wanting you here quicker is not an emergency, right? We've tried that; it didn't work. So that's how that 5-year time period comes about. It's not something that anybody can do something to speed up. That's just the process. So yes, even if you found an employer who's willing to give you a job offer, it may still take up to that 5-year. It may even be longer than that because some organizations don't also have a PWD available. So it takes about 6 years to get a PWD. So then, you know, so depending on the organization, the circumstance, that 5-year may even be longer. And yes, if your daughter is your biological daughter under the age of 21, yes, she can, you know, be added to the petition.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. You know, one thing that you would take away from this session that we always have with Mr. Douglas is that there is no sugarcoating of the truth. We don't sugarcoat anything. He's not trying to get you to buy a product, you know. So this is just the way it is, and they call it full disclaimer. There's every knowledge that you need about some things that we discuss here is being provided for you, and that's for a reason. So if you go to India and if you check India visa bulletin, you would see that most of them are retrogressed far more than we are. You know, we might be 2 years, some of them are 10 years. India, Philippines, a lot of them are like 10 years. Do they still write NCLEX in those countries? Yes. Do they still go for their process of coming to the United States? Yes, they do it. They know it's going to take time, but they do what they can do at that point in time and then wait out the remaining part of the process. You know, it depends on what you want. And then that's where starting something early comes in, because the earlier you get your foot in the door, the easier and the quicker the 5 years or how many ever year that it takes goes by quicker, you know. So, but if you are there procrastinating, if you have not written your NCLEX, I know what might be going in your mind is, okay, let me short to another country. That is still a way of procrastinating. If you have to write your NCLEX, if your dream is coming to the United States, I think you should get your foot in the door by writing your NCLEX and getting your foot in the door again by getting a priority date. Then you can be among those people who can, you know, who are on the wait list. And then you can fly to anywhere you want to go to. When that time is over, you can come back to your process. Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Douglas. It's been an amazing time with you. I know I told you it's going to be 1 hour, but I have a lot of questions here. Please, guys, if you are in a place where you can talk, some of these questions are, you know, they don't reflect the true picture of what you're going through. So, but if you can explain it, like the people that have been asking questions on this call, they've been able to explain their situations by themselves, and we're able to understand fully what's going on. So if you can explain it, I would ask you to please raise your hand, ask your question by yourself. And also to say that we might not get to all the questions. There's a lot of questions on the comment section. We might not get to all of them, but you know, if you have raised your hand, I will make sure that I call you up to ask your question. All right. So I have Favor. Favor, I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask your question now.
Thank you so much.
And then your name, and then you go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, my name is Favor. You can call me Izwa also. Actually, my question is not related to U.S. immigration visa. My question is related to Canadian. So I don't know if I can ask the question.
Yeah, Favor, I'm not licensed in Canada, and I'm not an expert in Canadian immigration, and so unfortunately, I cannot give you any guidance on that.
Okay. Thank you so much for your quick answer.
No problem.
All right, thank you, Favor. Yeah, so we have more questions on the comment section. I'm going to try my best to read out some. Let me see. Wendy is raising her hand. Wendy, where are you? If you can unmute Wendy, unmute and ask your question. That's not where to raise your hand. You have to use the reaction button to raise your hand. I'm trying to find you. Wendy.
I think Constance, we filed your I-140 in March of last year. I just checked the status. It's still processing. It's almost a year. You know, USCIS says it takes on average about 10 months. Yours is at 11 months. So it's still processing. It's still being reviewed. It says it's actively being reviewed. So hopefully we should get something soon.
Constance Dogger, yeah. I can't even find Wendy. So Wendy, if you can ask someone about how to raise your hand, so I can ask you to unmute and then ask your question. Is it Wendy or Cindy? I think it's Cynthia, right? Is it Cynthia? Apologies. So, God's advocate, you can ask your question while I continue to search for Cynthia. There's a lot of people on the call. Okay, go ahead, God's advocate. I've asked you to unmute, give us your location and then your name, and then go ahead and ask your question. Are you able to unmute, God's advocate? Unmute again, please. Click on the microphone icon on your phone. Okay, there you are. Cynthia, you can go ahead and ask your question now.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Yeah. How are you doing?
Okay.
Your name and location, please.
Yeah, so my name is Cynthia, and I'm currently in Abuja. So I actually have filed for a B1, B2.
Okay.
Before bringing my for the immigration process. Since I already have a B1, B2, I don't know if it's going to be an issue. That's why I thought to ask, sir.
So can you take that question again? You were breaking off at some point.
Sir, okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I said I currently have a B1, B2 visa for the US, but that was before I got married and before I had my child. So I want to know if I'm going to file for, the immigration pathway after NCLEX, how do I now include them since my visa is still very active? The B1, B2 I have is still very active. Do I need to, use another immigration pathway, or will I need to come to the US alone? That's just what I want to know.
I hope you know B1, B2 is sorry, go ahead, Mr. Douglas.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. B1, B2 is a tourist visa and it's individual. So you cannot get a B1, B2 for yourself and bring your kids along with you. If you wanted to bring them, you could get them a B1, B2 also. And you cannot come on a B1, B2 and adjust status through your I-140 because the priority dates are not current.
So some of these words might be so big for you at this point, because I see that you're still having issues understanding, like the visa that you have now is a tourist visa, it's a non-immigrant visa, non-immigrant. So if you're hoping to come here with it and stay, you might have trouble doing that. So that's one of the things that he's trying to explain to you. So the B1, B2, you can't really adjust it to I-140 at this point because the bulletin is not current. Okay, so I have Grace. Grace has a question. He said, well done, sir. I want to ask, if I relocate to Canada while waiting to be current and get ID from Nigeria, will it affect my US processing? I'm documentarily qualified and priority date is November 2023. Can I transfer my case to Canada and have my embassy interview and medicals in Canada?
Yes, I mean, if you live in Canada at the time that your priority becomes current, yes, you can certainly ask the NVC to move your case to Canada, and then you could do everything from there.
Sounds good, thank you. Let me see if I can run and take more questions. So iPhone is asking, my I-140 was filed in January last year, but yet to be approved. So at January last year till now, I think it's like the same thing you were talking about, a 1 year timeline, right?
Yeah, there are people that we still have whose I-140s have not been approved yet. When you check the status, it says it's still pending. We cannot even submit case inquiries because USCIS is still within normal processing time. So you have a priority date. Your priority date is not current. So your I-140 not being approved is not delaying your immigration petition. I mean, I know that you want, for your own satisfaction, you want it to be approved, but I promise you it's not delaying your process, because even if your I-140 is approved, you still have to wait for your priority date to become current. So just have some patience. As long as it says it's still processing, it's going to be approved, or you're going to get a response that tells you what you need to do.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Douglas. I have another question I have here. It says, hello, Mr. Decency. I guess that's Mr. Douglas. My husband has told me to start a Canada process, but my PD priority date is April 2023. I'm kind of tired of everything because it's looking like I'm not serious. I don't know if I should give it a try. Mr. Douglas.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about, some of these questions are not necessarily immigration questions. They're personal questions. If you want to live in Canada, then by all means, go the kind of Canada route. And if you happen to be in Canada while your priority becomes current, you could always ask the NVC to move your case to Canada so you can pursue the American option. But again, these are not, these are personal questions that you have to make a decision on with your family, whether or not you want to live in Canada or you want to live in the US.
Okay, thank you. Let me try to fish out more. You've answered Douglas. Constance Dogger.
I'll take the last question. I have a meeting that I have to attend to after this one. So.
Oh yeah, I didn't even look. So last question. It says, I'm still in Nigeria. Okay, that's the last question that I just read out. So let me see.
Cynthia has her hand up, yeah.
Cindy still has a question. Let me see. Cindy, you can unmute now and ask your question, Cindy. Cynthia, Wendy, sorry. Unmute and ask your question. Can you unmute and ask your question, Cindy? Okay, so Mr. Douglas, I just final words. I know you have to run. So final words for us.
Yeah, I think the EB3 visa has been around for a very long time. Nurses have been coming to America for a very, very long time. You guys would not be the first, and hopefully you're not the last. There's all indications and all data out there suggest that America has a huge nursing shortage problems. Nurses and physicians, there's a huge shortage of nurses, not just for now, but in the future. So America is always going to need nurses. This EB3 visa process is always a viable process. It comes down to timing and patience. I think sometimes, if you want things done so quickly that it seems like other people are delaying your process, the employer that is paying for you to come here, you have to understand that you haven't, you may have paid a little bit of money, but your employer has invested a lot of money on the process for you. So they want you here as quickly as possible so they can start making money by having you work. Sometimes I get the impression that people feel like they want to be here quicker than the employer wants them here, or they feel like the employer is not rushing their process. Sometimes when you come across as too desperate, some of that bleeds into the visa interview and you could have issues, or when you rush through things. I've had a number of candidates that wanted their I-140 filed so quickly that they gave me documents that were not proper. And now, after the I-140 is approved, they're coming back to me to try to go back and fix it, which is significantly harder. If we're just taking our time to get the documents done the correct way, we wouldn't have that problem. Other people also were in the middle of a divorce. The divorce was not finalized, but they wanted us to pay to submit the application. We submit the application, the divorce gets finalized, and now they want to go back and take their spouse's name from the application, which creates more work for me and for everybody else. And so just think of it as a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not something that happens overnight. I want you here as quickly as possible. Your employer, who is putting money on the line, want you here as quickly as possible, and you certainly want to be here as quickly as possible. So all of us want you here. So we have to take the time to go through the process. There's no magic or anything anybody can do to rush the process. And sometimes going through the process and doing things right is better than rushing through it and then coming back and trying to fix it. The other thing that I've also that I would say is that, you know, sometimes when you have the proper documentation, you don't need to do too much to try to prove that the documentation is legit. So I've had people give me their birth certificates, and then they have an affidavit saying that their birth certificate is proper, which I never quite understood the rationale behind that. They have affidavits of confirmation of age, and I never quite understood that, you know, because if you give me an affidavit saying that your birth certificate is correct, then now I'm wondering whether or not your birth certificate is actually correct.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so just, you don't need to overproduce documents. Just produce the things that are required of you. What you're doing is legal. There's nothing illegal about it. You don't have to try to make the process more complicated than it needs to be. It's a very simple process, actually. It just takes time, and it takes certain particular documents. So you don't need to overcomplicate it. Have some patience. You know, eventually, if you do things right, you know, eventually you'll be here. There's several people that have come through this exact same process that you're looking to do, and you know, and during their time we didn't have retrogression. I grant you that, but now we have retrogression, and you know, it's still gonna work. So if you have an opportunity to go to a different country, by all means you could do it, and if your visa bulletin becomes current, your priority becomes current, then you could, you know, we could switch to the embassy of that country and try to get you to America from that country. I hope that helps, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.
Thank you so much, Mr. Douglas. You know, the good thing is I always see passion whenever Mr. Douglas gives us a final word. I see passion, nothing less than passion. Passion to see people succeed, to see you do the right thing in your immigration process. So, Mr. Douglas, we are so proud, we're so happy, and you know, that you came to our program today. We want to appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming. You know, I hope that when next we call on you, you'll be able to respond to our call. I know we have to run now. I know people are here also. Please, guys, you guys should appreciate Mr. Douglas. He's done enough for us today. He gave us 1 full hour. Thank you so much, Mr. Douglas, and have a good one. Okay.
Thank you guys too. Bye-bye.
All right. Yeah. Bye. Okay, guys, that brings us to the end of our program. I know your questions were answered. I know that most of you have gotten the answers to some of the questions that you have. If your questions were not answered today, please kindly join us in our next meeting, as we'll be hosting yet other people that are, you know, have something to say about your process to the United States in this program. So our Friday show is getting more interesting and more interesting every day. So next week, we're going to be having Pearson, representative from Pearson PTE. They will be here on this program live, talking to you about the processes that they are doing, the programs that they are bringing out, and then the program that they have coming up in West Africa. So there's a lot that they're going to be downloading for us on next week Friday. So I want you to keep a date with us next week Friday by 6 p.m. GMT. We're going to be here live again with all of you, and we'll be dissecting all the things that Pearson has to offer for all the nurses in Africa. So you are all invited to this program. Okay. Thank you, and God bless you. I'll see you next Friday. Bye.